Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace. It is lovely to have you here as always. If you've been around for a while and seen some more of my videos, then you will know that I am a writer or trying to be a writer, but I've been dealing with a lot of issues around perfectionism, as many of us writers do. I just need everyone to like me. Recently I've been trying to get a bit more into watching AuthorTube videos and just videos from writers in general who can give me some tips on how to deal with problems that a lot of writers face, how to deal with perfectionism and being a sensitive creative person. None of my problems are original, so thankfully there are people out there who can give me advice, and someone I stumbled across recently was the author of The Principle of Moments, which is a sci-fi book that came out earlier this year. I haven't read it yet, but I've been meaning to, and I've heard really good things about it. And they have a YouTube channel. It's called Esmie the Author. I'll link it down below, but they posted a video recently about how to stop overthinking your writing. And one of the things they recommended to do was to look at your favorite books online and find the 1-star reviews for them. Now within the booktube space, this is not a new concept. I've seen many people do this, mostly just for fun. I think the most recent one I saw was Lainey from the book Leo, so I'll link that one too. And they are usually pretty funny, but I think it might also help me on my sensitive perfectionist level to get a little bit of perspective by looking at books that I consider to be just absolutely wonderful, what I'm trying to work towards writing wise, and remind myself that not everybody loves them. No piece of media is going to be perfect to everyone, and that's okay. That's okay, Grace. Also, it'll just be a little bit of fun. This is just apple juice. I may begin to wish that it was something stronger. Okay, we're gonna start with one of my favorite books of all time, which is Circe by Madeline Miller. This was the first of the kind of feminist retelling, historical-ish books that I read, and I adored it. I thought it was gorgeously written. I thought the characters were really complex. I loved the ending. I really need to give that book a reread. So let's see why people hated it. Ooh, okay. This was, very honestly, one of the most boring, dreadful books I've read. Reading it was a chore. I am once again thankful I do not buy books anymore and instead borrowed this book from the library. I mean, we love libraries. We gotta give them that. Continue to borrow your books, that's great. But one of the most boring, dreadful books I've read? Oof. A YA novel masquerading as a Greek mythology 101 retelling. Feels like the author just had a checklist of major events / characters she wanted to talk about without ever focusing on any single one of them, and it ultimately turns into a jumbled mess. I'm pretty sure a man wrote this review. There is such a trend of fantasy-ish books that are written by women and focus on women's stories that then get miscategorized as young adult when they're clearly written for adults. I really don't see what could be young adult about this book, of all the complaints you could have. But the rest of it, I kind of get. I think the thing that I love about this book, and I've said before on this channel, I love books that just tell the story of someone's lives and have no real structure to them, just follow the chaotic kind of story arc of a person's life and how natural that feels. I really enjoy that jumbled mess, as this person so kindly puts it. But I can see that that wouldn't be for everyone. Okay, on a completely different note, I think I'm gonna go for Happy Place by Emily Henry next, because I know that this is kind of controversial even within the romance girly Emily Henry community. Not everyone loved this book, but it really resonated with me, so I'm gonna emotionally damage myself by reading about why it didn't resonate with everyone else. When I die, I want Emily Henry to lower me into my grave so she can let me down one last time. Okay, so this person is not an Emily Henry girly. There's one that's just 1-star, Miss Henry, can you explain how Shorty is gonna pay off those loans? Look, I'm not here for realism. I'm here to be emotionally devastated. That's not, you're missing the point. I'm sorry, what? This is more people we meet on vacation than book lovers, and that is not a good thing. I'm sorry? I have not read People We Meet on Vacation yet, but I've not heard great things. I have, however, just finished Book Lovers, and I loved it. but not quite as much as Happy Place. What is going on? Too try-hard / flowery with all the stupid metaphors, very saccharine. Oof. But that's a good example, isn't it? This is a good thing. I love the writing style in this book, but it's not for everyone. Just like mine won't be. Okay, next, again, we have one that's, I can see why people wouldn't like it, which is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. And I think this is gorgeously written, but it is also kind of nonsense. It's very much just vibes. This book made me feel really dumb. I don't think it was the book's fault. The combination of high science fiction with poetic literary fiction just didn't click together in my brain. Fair enough. I respect your honesty. That, like, kind of same, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed feeling stupid. So I think maybe that says more about me than it does about you. Okay, this, me. No one could ever make a story about two genetically engineered super soldiers fighting a time travel war boring. El-Mohtar and Gladstone hold a pretentious beverage. It is pretentious. You know what? I accept it. It's a pretentious book, and I loved it. Every second. Okay, that's funny. This is metaphor hell. It sounded like I just ran some text through Google Translate and got back a bunch of gibberish. But it's beautiful gibberish. Okay, next I'm gonna go for Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, who is one of my favorite writers. I loved the whimsy and gothic nature of this book, and all three of the main characters were just iconic and grumpy and flawed, and the writing is just delicious. Okay, this person DNF'd halfway through. If you're looking for a book with shallow and passive characters, dialogue that lacks any substance, and a non-existent plot, Sorcery of Thorns is the book for you. If you're looking for a good book, stay far away from Sorcery of Thorns. Passive characters? I think we read a different book. I do love a good non-existent plot though, you know that's my kind of thing. Okay, here we are again. This was just boring all around. Boring characters, boring storyline, boring dialogues and descriptions. It just never gripped me. I wanted it to be more fleshed out. So I didn't hate this, but there was nothing about it that made me like it either. I think it would suit someone younger a lot better, maybe even on a middle grade level. I never understand when people say they didn't hate a book, but they gave it 1 star. The math isn't mathing. But that's interesting that they think it would suit someone younger better. I would say plotline wise, the actual themes that are explored here, I disagree, but in terms of writing, there's a lot of whimsy in here. There's sort of a magical house that has its own personality. The main relationship really reminds me of Sophie and Howl from Howl's Moving Castle, which we'll get to later. I really enjoy middle grade books, so to me that isn't a negative thing, which again just speaks to personal taste, you know? I love a good dash of whimsy. I'm chasing the joy of my childhood years still, so if a book would appeal to that younger audience, it may well appeal to me also. Okay, seeing as it's come up, we may as well give Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones a look. I really don't know how you could hate this book. I was talking with a friend earlier and it is just like hating joy and puppies and beautiful sunsets and sunrises. This book for me is the blueprint. I want any romantasy I read to feel like I'm reading Howl's Moving Castle, but maybe a little bit aged up. Ooh, okay. This is going to be a quick review because I don't want to waste any more time on this book. I honestly can't believe the high ratings this has. The characters are whiny, self-centered and unlikable. There was no character development, I didn't care what happened to anyone, and I could not find a point to the story. Okay, so Howl is whiny and self-centered, definitely. I would argue Sophie is definitely not. She just gets on with it. That's her main character trait. But Howl definitely is, and that is part of his charm. That's, you know, that's who he is, and we love him for it, even though he's kind of annoying. Was there any character development in Howl's Moving Castle? Honestly, I don't remember. I think maybe it's one of those books where there's less character development than character unraveling. you slowly begin to find out new things about characters throughout the book, and everything comes together in the end. Oh, this one's brutal. I hated this book. I still hate it. It was so terrible. I shiver every time I think about how terrible it was. Why do so many people like this book? It's one of the worst books I've ever read. What? Oh, that stings. Okay. The Studio Ghibli movie is fantastic. My favorite movie of all time, but don't read the book. Interesting. I like the Howl's Moving Castle movie, but I'm very much of the opinion that the book is better. I think as a story, it's a lot more well-rounded, and I know that isn't necessarily the point of the Ghibli movie. It's largely vibes, which I can empathize with that. But personally, I think the vibes of the book are more suited to my taste. The whimsy of Diana Wynne Jones's writing, I just love. And again, the way that she just wraps everything up in a nice little bow at the end is just, okay. We're gonna do Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, which for me is taking that Howl's Moving Castle blueprint and really running with it. This relationship, so Howl and Sophie coded, and I live for that. Oh no, I've been immediately contradicted. I didn't get the Howl's Moving Castle vibes from the book like everyone else claimed, and I didn't find the love interest similar to Howl at all either. Interesting. The chemistry was terrible, and this has to be the worst slow burn I've ever read. And that's coming from someone who loves slow burn. I'm shook. No, I'm speechless. I have nothing to say. But this is the lesson. This is what we're trying to learn here. Is, to me, reading that review, it feels like, has this person read an entirely different book? I don't understand. I cannot comprehend how someone came away from something I read and adored with such a different feeling, but that's what reading is. It's so subjective. It entirely depends on your tastes, where you are in life, how you're coming at this book emotionally. So many factors go into your enjoyment of a book. So I really just can't expect for everyone to like what I write. That's okay. If someone manages to hate the slow burn love interest between Emily and Wendell, then I'm gonna be okay with someone hating my writing too. Let's have a look at something a bit different. This is Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli, which is probably my favorite young adult contemporary novel. I tend to read a lot more fantasy, but this one has a special place in my heart. Okay. This person DNF'd at 30% and said, I really tried, but this wasn't for me. Imogen overthinks every single interaction with a queer person. Please, Imogen, just live your life and stop overthinking about what people think of you or perceive of you. Also, there's no plot, it's just friends hanging out doing things that aren't even interesting. This is interesting to me because that's, to me, the point of this book, is that Imogen is overthinking. The whole point is her working through those feelings, the toxicity of some of the people around her who have taught her kind of to overthink these things, but also just the culture of biphobia and her figuring herself out and trying not to feel guilty all the time. That's the whole entire point. And also, I love watching friends just hanging out doing things that aren't even interesting. Okay, I would read more, but the rest are just biphobic. Cool, moving on. Let's look at the book that I respond with when someone asks me what my favorite book of all time is. I'm probably gonna say Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. Short and sweet, pretentious and unbearably boring. Put it on my tombstone. Ooh, this is the only Terry Pratchett Discworld book I couldn't make it through. What? This is by far my favorite Discworld book. I've not read as many as I would like to, but the ones I have read, none of them have lived up to Small Gods for me. So I cannot imagine it being the worst one to someone. That's wild. Oh my gosh, this one just says, surprisingly bad book. What a roast. Another one of my absolute favorite books ever. I'm gonna go for The Midnight Lie by Marie Rutkoski. A decent epilogue doesn't change the fact that I've never felt so painfully bored with a book in my entire life. It's taken me 4 whole months to read this and I won't be touching the sequel. I mean, I expected that. This is very much a no plot, just vibes book, which, you know, is my cup of tea, but I know it's not everyone else's. 4 months? Oof, I would have DNF'd by that point. I'm sorry you put yourself through that. This person just says, yep, it was a book. And there were words on every page, not good ones, but words. I spent the entire book waiting for it to be over and wish I'd just DNF'd it. To me, this is such a gorgeously written book. The words are incredible in my personal opinion. Oh, that hurts. Okay. I think people just need to DNF more. If a book isn't for you, just cut it. You've got better things to do with your time. I DNF books all the time. Actually, I haven't DNF'd a book this year. Maybe I should DNF more too. Okay, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. One of the best written books I have ever read. I did not enjoy this at all. Pretentious, confusing, and jumping through time to make no sense whatsoever. And that ending, that is some open-ended bull for a pointless sequel if this one sells well, and you cannot convince me otherwise. So unnecessary. I don't think The Starless Sea is getting a sequel. I didn't think it was a perfect ending, I'll give them that. But that's the kind of book that Erin Morgenstern writes, is that kind of wistful ending where you kind of fill in the gaps. Very vibes based yet again. I really don't think there's gonna be a sequel. I'm sorry. We can't convince you otherwise. Okay, that one's funny. The most boring person on earth is recruited into a masochistic secret society of librarians. I joined that society. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, another one of my favorite books of all time. And yet again, how could you dislike this book? It's just joy. That's what this book is. It's just full of wholesome fun times, a lovable main character on a little Canadian farm. What could you hate about this book? What? It was okay. I don't really like classics. I'm more of a slime person. Fair enough, my guy. I can't argue with you there. You have to be really charmed by Anne's non-stop yammering to enjoy this book. And I wasn't, so I didn't. Again, you know, I understand, you're self-aware and I appreciate that. If you don't enjoy giant spurts of dialogue from a precocious child who loves nature and life, then you won't like this book. But I did, thankfully. Oh God. I want to punch Lucy Maud Montgomery in the face. Chill out. It was the worst book I've ever read. If I see Anne on the street, it's on sight. Why is this book making people so aggressive? What? Okay, I don't know how to deal with that. I think maybe, just maybe some people need therapy. What a way to end this video. It's good to know that even a lovely little book about an orphan who's taken into a warm, loving home and gets to appreciate the beauty of her island and her new kindred spirits could make people want to punch the author in the face. I guess I'll know if I ever manage to get a book published and someone finds me in the street and punches me in the face for it. At least I'll know I'm in good company. Honestly, what a ride. So thank you for watching. If you are a writer with some perfectionistic tendencies, maybe give this a go yourself. You might rage. You may also find it a little bit healing. I currently don't know how I feel. That last one really threw me. I think it is important to get some perspective every now and then and remind yourself that simply not everyone is going to like your work. That's just how it be. And if I can deal with people hating Anne of Green Gables and House Moving Castle, then I can deal with a few people not liking my own work. You simply can't write for everyone because everyone has different tastes. So this can be a good reminder when you're overthinking your work and worrying that your style isn't for everyone. it isn't, and that's okay. Oh man, okay. I'm really gonna have to go and process those reviews now. I hope you're having a lovely day and that all of the bad reviews you find of books you love are at least funny ones. I wish that for you. I hope you have the loveliest week ahead of you, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye bye.